Create a 15-minute dramatic and intense cinematic video for YouTube about Bible torture story. Title: The Forgotten Bible Curse That Mirrors Prometheus's Punishment. Intro and hook. For thousands of years, one story has been the ultimate symbol of eternal punishment. The Titan Prometheus, chained to a rock, his liver devoured daily by an eagle. It's a story of divine payback so brutal, so unending, that it has haunted our collective imagination. But what if I told you the Bible has a story that, while less gory, mirrors this cycle of torment in a way that's far more personal and psychologically agonizing? A story that doesn't feature a regenerating organ, but the slow, systematic ruin of a man's entire world, body, and spirit. We're going to uncover the story of Job, a man whose suffering was so absolute that it rivals the punishment of the gods, and reveals a chilling parallel to the Greek myth you thought you knew. Section 1. The Eternal Torment of Prometheus. To get the biblical parallel, we first have to remember the harrowing myth of the Titan who just loved humanity a little too much. Prometheus was a champion for mankind. In a world where gods like Zeus kept all the power for themselves, Prometheus saw our potential. His greatest act of rebellion was stealing fire, not just a flame, but the spark of knowledge, art, and civilization, and gifting it to mortals. To Zeus, this was an unforgivable crime. It was a direct challenge to his authority, and the punishment had to be more than just death. It had to be a statement. It had to feel eternal. So Zeus had Prometheus chained to a desolate rock in the Caucasus Mountains, completely helpless. But the chains were just the beginning. Every single day, a giant eagle, Zeus's personal messenger, would fly down, tear into the Titan's flesh, and eat his liver. The pain was unimaginable, and just when the day's torture was over, the night offered no relief. Because Prometheus was immortal, his liver would completely regenerate overnight, making him whole again, only to face the exact same horror when the sun rose. This cycle of agony was designed to be endless. It wasn't just physical pain, it was the psychological terror of knowing that tomorrow would bring the same suffering with no hope of escape. In many versions of the myth, the hero Heracles eventually sets him free, but the punishment itself was intended to last forever. The story became the definitive myth of eternal, cyclical torment, a powerful symbol of defiance, but also a chilling picture of divine cruelty. Section 2. The Unending Suffering of Job. Now let's meet Job. The Bible introduces him as a man who was blameless and upright, someone who revered God and rejected evil. He was wildly successful, had a huge family, and was respected by everyone. By all accounts, he was living proof of God's favor. And that's exactly what made him the perfect target. The story kicks off not on earth, but in the divine court, with a conversation between God and Satan. God proudly points to Job as a model of faithfulness. But Satan, the heavenly prosecutor, is skeptical. He asks a question that gets to the very heart of belief. Does Job fear God for nothing? Take away all his blessings, Satan bets, and Job will curse God to his face. In a move that has had theologians debating for centuries, God agrees to the test. He gives Satan permission to destroy everything Job has, with one rule: don't harm Job himself. The torment begins in a flash. In a single day, a series of messengers brings Job one wave of catastrophic news after another. His livestock are stolen and his servants killed. His sheep are incinerated by a fire from God. And in the final soul-shattering blow, a massive windstorm causes the house where his 10 children are celebrating to collapse, killing them all. In a matter of moments, Job loses everything. Yet through his grief, he tears his robes, shaves his head, and worships God. Round 1 goes to Job. But Satan isn't done. He goes back to God and says, skin for skin, a man will give up anything to save his own life, but strike his flesh and bones, and he'll curse you. Once again, God agrees, allowing Satan to attack Job's body. but this time he must spare his life. What follows isn't a clean, repeating wound like Prometheus's. It's a complete, systemic corruption of the body. Job is struck with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Job 2:7. He's covered in painful boils, his skin turning black and peeling. He sits in a pile of ashes, scraping his wounds with a shard of pottery. His suffering is so absolute that his own wife tells him to just curse God and die. But the real grinding torment isn't just physical. 3 of Job's friends show up, and after sitting in shocked silence for a week, they start talking. Instead of offering comfort, they offer condemnation. They're convinced that this level of suffering must be punishment for some terrible, secret sin. For chapter after agonizing chapter, they hammer away at him, demanding he confess to a crime he never committed. He is totally alone, feeling abandoned by God, attacked by his friends, and trapped in a decaying body. It's a living death. While Prometheus had an external enemy he could see coming every day, Job's torment was internal, existential, and inescapable. He was chained not to a rock, but to his own body and a universe that had suddenly gone silent and cruel. We've seen the Titan's physical agony and the righteous man's spiritual despair. Before we break down the chilling parallels between them, if you enjoy these deep dives into mythology and scripture, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Section 3. The Parallels of Punishment. When you put these two stories side by side, the parallels are as fascinating as the differences. There's no regenerating liver in the Bible, but the core ideas of divine power and unending torment are definitely there. Parallel 1. The Cosmic Conflict. Both stories are kicked off by a high-stakes conflict in the heavens. Prometheus suffers because he defied Zeus. Job suffers because of a wager between God and Satan to test the limits of his faith. In both cases, a mortal, or a titan, becomes a playing piece in a cosmic game. Their pain serves a purpose bigger than themselves, either as a warning or as proof in a celestial argument. Parallel 2. Defiance versus faithfulness. Here's where the stories create a perfect mirror image. Prometheus is punished for an act of defiance, stealing fire. His torment is a direct result of his actions. Job, on the other hand, is tested because of his unwavering faithfulness. His suffering is specifically undeserved. And yet, they both end up in a similar place, demanding to know if divine power is truly just. Prometheus is defiant in his suffering, while Job is bewildered, begging for a chance to face God and ask why. Parallel 3. The nature of endless torment. This is the deepest parallel. Prometheus faces a physical agony designed to be cyclical and eternal. The Bible offers its own version of this, not through physical regeneration, but through relentless decay and what feels like divine abandonment. From Job's perspective, in the midst of his suffering, his sores and losses represented a state of hopeless, all-consuming affliction. Although God does eventually restore him, Job's experience is one of a living death, a state where each day brings no relief, only more pain, much like Prometheus waiting for the eagle. Interestingly, the image of being devoured by birds does show up as a divine curse in the Bible. Deuteronomy 28:26 warns that if the Israelites break their covenant, their bodies will become food for all the birds of the air. While that's a punishment after death, it shows that this imagery was a shared, powerful archetype for divine retribution in the ancient world. You could see Job's story as a living version of this curse. His body is being consumed by disease, and his spirit is being consumed by despair. So, while the Bible doesn't have a literal eagle and liver curse, the story of Job is a haunting spiritual and psychological mirror to the myth of Prometheus. Both stories explore the terrifying idea of a mortal subjected to overwhelming torment by a divine power. Prometheus's pain is physical, cyclical, and a punishment for rebellion. Job's is a total affliction, physical, social, and spiritual, and a test of his goodness. In a way, the biblical version is even more terrifying. Prometheus knew why he was being punished. He made a choice. Job was chosen because he was good, and his suffering was the result of a cosmic bet he knew nothing about. What these two ancient stories reveal, from two very different cultures, is a deep, shared anxiety about power, suffering, and the struggle to hold on to your integrity when faced with what feels like unjust cruelty. They are timeless explorations of the human condition, asking a question we still ask today: how do you endure the unendurable? Which punishment do you find more terrifying? The physical certainty Prometheus faced, or the psychological and spiritual despair of Job? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring the crossroads of mythology and scripture, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more.